Welcome back to Coding Content, where we try to make sense of coding concepts before they make us lose our minds. Today, we're diving into the magical world of recursion. That's right, we're talking about writing code that calls itself, because who doesn't want a little existential crisis with their morning coffee? So, let's start with the basics. What is recursion? At its core, recursion is a method where a function calls itself to solve a problem. It's like those Russian nesting dolls, except instead of dolls, you've got functions inside functions, and they all want to solve your problems, one call at a time. Sounds simple, right? Well, it's both incredibly powerful and a little bit terrifying, kind of like giving your cat a laser pointer. Now, why would anyone in their right mind use recursion? Well, it's perfect for problems that can be broken down into smaller similar subproblems. Think of it like trying to eat a giant pizza, one slice at a time, you know? Recursion allows you to tackle tasks like calculating factorials, traversing trees, or implementing algorithms like quicksort and merge sort. Let's talk about how recursion works. Imagine you have a function that solves a problem by reducing it into smaller versions of itself. With each call, it gets closer to a base case, a condition that doesn't require further recursion. Once it hits that base case, it starts returning values, and everything unravels back to the original problem. It's like reverse engineering your way out of a maze. Or if you're like me, trying to remember where you parked your car. But before you run off into the wild with recursion, let's discuss the dark side. Stack Overflow. No, not the website where you get all your answers. This is the point where your program crashes because you've called a function too many times without hitting that sweet base case. To avoid this, make sure your base case is solid. Think of it as the emergency exit in a burning building. You definitely want to know where it is before you start playing with fire. Now you might wonder, isn't recursion just a fancy way of looping? Well, kind of. But it's not just about loops, it's about elegance and readability. Recursion can often make code more intuitive, especially for problems that naturally fit into recursive structures, like tree traversals. It's like comparing a handwritten love letter to a text message. Sure, they both get the point across, but one takes you on a journey. And here's a pro tip. When using recursion, always keep an eye on your call stack. It's the memory that stores all those function calls. Treat it well, or it might just rebel against you and cause a crash. Think of it as your computer's version of a teenager. Sometimes it just needs a little guidance and a lot of patience. So, how do you know when to use recursion? If your problem can be divided into similar subproblems and it's easier to solve when broken down, recursion is your friend. Otherwise, stick with iterative solutions. It's like choosing between cooking a meal from scratch or ordering takeout. Both are valid, but one's a bit more adventurous. In the end, recursion isn't something to fear, it's a tool to wield with confidence. Like wielding a sword. Sure, you might cut yourself a few times, but eventually you'll look like a coding ninja. So dive in, experiment, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Remember, every misstep is just another recursive call on your path to becoming a better programmer. That's all for today, folks. Go forth and conquer your recursive demons. And remember, if your code starts calling itself at 3 a.m. asking for emotional support, maybe it's time to refactor. Happy coding!